Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Look at all these rumors surrounding me every day.
Well, there's a lot of rumors in Washington right now. There's more rumors than, what was the old expression? Carter has liver pills? So, that shows how old I am.
There's a lot of rumors.
In the studio today, we have Ed Cox, the GOP chairman of New York State, and Governor David Paterson. And Rita, there's so many rumors. There's rumors all day long that the knives are out, like Brutus.
Yes.
The new Brutuses are out. The knives are out against J.D. Vance.
And by the way, I'm glad you say new Brutuses because, of course, we saw what happened with Biden. Right, exactly.
They worked. Right. Last week's Brutuses worked.
Yes.
They killed Biden.
They killed Biden.
They did.
Absolutely. And now the new rumors are that there are people in the GOP that are trying to get J.D. replaced on the VP side
Vance
with
out.
Nikki Haley, maybe, or someone else.
And all I can say, then you have Nikki Haley, which she is a Bombay Indian from India. And then Harris is a Bombay Indian, too.
Right.
So do we balance out the Bombay Indians?
I'm not sure.
Bombay India would be proud. There you go,
Look,
right? They're covered.
The Indian people are great people. They're very smart people.
Absolutely.
Both of them, you know?
Absolutely. And it would be interesting if it was two women, but I don't see how they would ever replace JD. He's already been nominated. He would have to.
Hey, if I was nominated for vice president and then you said, well, we're actually going to let you do something and be Secretary of Defense. I would think about it.
You would think about and if you were told, hey, we want to replace you, maybe then you'd think about it more.
No. And they want to replace you because I'm going to give you a better job. Because the vice president cleans toilets.
Right. Yeah, well, and by the way, is also supposed to fix the border.
I'm not sure. There's a Yale law student running the Defense Department.
Very interesting, Ed Cox.
Well, remember, and I know that Chairman Cox remembers it, that there was a vice president who was replaced in 1972 by George McGovern, Senator Eagleton.
I was going to say
from
that.
Missouri.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Well, I remember that debate. Eagleton was on there. Admiral Eagleton, was it? Or he was up there, and he didn't. He said, "I don't know why I'm here."
Well, the only thing that he really was accused of doing was he got electric shock therapy treatment. So they were trying to say that he was mentally unfit. McGovern had to pull him.
He should not have pulled him. He should not have pulled him.
Yeah,
it hurt McGovern in the end. It showed he was uncertain.
How many states did McGovern lose?
He only got Massachusetts and
DC.
District of Columbia.
And that was it.
That was it.
That was it. And that race got called, I think, even before the polls were closed.
I remember that was called landslide. That's what's called. By the way, I want to flip. Also, Obama.
By the way,
finally endorsed. Remember, finally endorsed Kamala.
Now, I'm going to say one more comment.
A whole lot of people.
They're talking about Kamala picking not Todd Shapiro.
Oh no,
Josh
Shapiro.
Shapiro.
Todd Shapiro, PR.
Now,
we love you.
How do the people of Pennsylvania feel about that? Because Josh Shapiro is a common sense guy. He likes fracking.
John.
And let me finish.
I'm sorry.
And then
Kamala
hates fracking. And on one side of the border, here's the New York State-Pennsylvania border. On the Pennsylvania border, they're driving Mercedes and Cadillacs. On the New York State border, they're driving 55 Chevys.
Because Cuomo banned fracking in New York State, the only state with lots of good fracking shale, and we don't do it. We don't develop it at all.
Governor Paterson, how come you didn't approve fracking?
Your
fault.
I did approve it. I did approve it.
He did.
Wow. Well, Kamala Harris is against fracking and also fossil
and
fuels.
What was the name of that actor, Mark Ruffalo, who was calling people? He called me up and started cursing me out.
Oh, you too? I heard he cursed out a lot of people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Governor Hochul this morning says about people suing her because they want congestion pricing. She says, you got to get online. There's 11 others in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Rita, bring in our good friend, Professor Dershowitz.
Well, joining us is Professor Alan Dershowitz, of course, law school professor emeritus. We love Professor Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, by the way, just to sort of spearhead of what we're hearing with the VP choice here for Kamala Harris, Josh Shapiro, some members of the media came out and said she won't pick him because he is Jewish. And look at the way she sort of handled things of late with Netanyahu. Your thoughts about all that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to really, really respond to Mr. Catsmedes putting down of 1955 Chevrolets.
You got a couple?
I wish I still had that 1955 Chevy.
Especially if it was a Corvette.
Right. It would be worth a lot more than Mercedes today. So I miss my 55 Chevy. Look, if Kamala Harris refuses to appoint somebody just because he's Jewish in order to placate the Muslims of Minnesota, that would be just part and parcel of what the Democrats have been doing in terms of Jews, in terms of Israel. I'm scared of Kamala Harris. I don't think she has a place for Israel in her heart the way Joe Biden did. He didn't always act on it, but you knew that he had a place in his heart for Israel. Kamala, I'm just not sure. And so let's see who she picks for vice president. And I haven't made my decision yet. I cannot any longer, though, call myself a member of the Democratic Party after, 80 Democrats in a bigoted and double standard way walked out on Prime Minister Netanyahu. Many of these people would have been jumping all over themselves to go to hear Fidel Castro or to hear the head of Iran or to hear the head of the Palestinian Authority. And yet they wouldn't even listen to a brilliant speech made by Netanyahu. So I can't associate myself with a party like that or with a party in which Nancy Pelosi lied through her teeth when she said it was the worst speech ever made by a foreign leader. Hey, I am a pretty good judge of speakers. This is one of the best speeches ever made. And then you had another Democrat saying, well, we should never invite foreign leaders. Was he talking about Winston Churchill when he said that? I wasn't sure. And so I don't like the way the Democrats have been handling the Netanyahu visit. And I'm glad he had a good visit today.
I agree with you, Professor. As a Bill Clinton Democrat, I love Bill Clinton. I still love the guy.
Yeah.
I think he was one of the most common sense, one of the smartest presidents we ever had.
I agree with you. And he went to Yale Law School. So there. You can be a defense attorney from Yale Law School. I think I would have been a damn good defense secretary. After all, I was a good defense attorney, and I went to Yale Law School.
You know what statement? You know what statement I love? The one that Netanyahu said.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a fight between barbarism versus civilization.
Right in the beginning, he said
right.
that.
And we got that. And we have that battle in New York City right now.
Yeah. No. Look, he's right to say this is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between civilization and barbarism.
Yes.
And these useful idiots, these kids who are supporting Hamas, who are supporting rapists, who are supporting beheaders, who are supporting murderers, they deserve no excuse just because they're young. Hitler's youth were young, too, when they prevented Jewish kids from going to school in Munich in 1933 or in Berlin or in Hamburg. So these kids should not be getting jobs anywhere by Americans. And I can tell you, I would never hire somebody who supported Hamas. They have a right to support Hamas, and I have a right to say that if you do that, you're beyond civilization. I wouldn't want one of my clients to be represented by somebody who supported Hamas, who supported rape. No. And so although they have a constitution, it's great what Justice Brennan once said. He was a friend of mine. He was a great man. He was asked, how could you defend the right of an American to burn an American flag? And he did hold that you can burn your own American flag. He said if he ever saw somebody burning an American flag, he would do two things. Number one, he would defend his right to do so, and number two, he would punch him in the mouth. And that's the way I feel. These kids, when they burn American flags, let them be hit by trucks, as long as they don't get censored. I don't care what happens to them. They are horrible, horrible people when they burn American flags and when they burn Israeli flags. And I think the most important thing to know is when you burn an Israeli flag, you are definitely coming out against the United States. Scratch an anti-Zionist, and you're going to find an anti-Semite.
And I said yesterday, Professor,
and an anti-American.
I said yesterday, Professor, I hope the feds, whoever they may be, FBI, any of the other 17 or 18 agencies, are taking pictures of these people burning the American flag, because if they apply for citizenship papers, I hope they give them the thumbs down.
Yeah, and I hope that they pass a law now saying you can't wear masks when you burn things down. We have a right under the First Amendment of transparency. You have a right to burn the flag, and I have a right to know who you are and not employ you. But you have no right to burn the flag wearing a mask.
Governor Patterson
has your identity.
Governor Patterson has his 2 cents.
Alan, the whole political issue that I don't understand is I thought during a presidential campaign, and this goes for both parties in a way, that when you make remarks, you sort of, no matter where you make the remarks, you know that 100 million people are going to hear you.
Yeah.
So why would these statements be made about Palestinians? Palestinians, first of all, are the shield for people who really are supporting Hamas, but that's their way of purifying themselves as they see it. But my point is that people are going to go to the polls and vote. And after Netanyahu's speech yesterday, you could not vote for any of the people who are saying that they support the Palestinians when they're really opening the door for Hamas.
I agree with you, and I am going to personally boycott anybody who boycotted Netanyahu. They will never get a penny from me. They will never get my support. I think the worst among them is Liz Warren, who was my colleague for many years. She's turned out to be one of the most bigoted and despicable members of the United States Senate. She is always on the wrong side of every issue involving Jews, Israel, America, foreign policy, you name it, she's wrong.
That was too ambiguous, Alan. How do you really feel about it?
Let me tell you how I feel. When she first decided to run, she came to me and she said, Alan, I don't know anything about the Middle East. I don't know where the West Bank is. I don't know anything. Please give me a little tutorial. I gave her a tutorial, and she didn't listen to a word. And even in 2015, before Gaza, she refused to go and listen to Netanyahu back then. And I told her back then, you are now my political enemy. I will do anything to defeat you. I wish I were 25 years younger. I'd go back to Boston. I'd run against her. If I were 55 years younger, I'd go to Gaza and get a gun and try to fight against Hamas. But I'm 85, so all I can do is talk on your show.
I'm 10 years behind you. Now, Professor, I forgot what I was going to say. My God. I'm 75 and I'm losing it.
All right. Well, I'm not losing it yet. So, but close. But Professor Dershowitz, let me ask you also about the fact that Kamala Harris came out. And when she came out of her, first of all, she doesn't want to be seen behind Netanyahu. She went to her sorority meeting instead. Then she has a private meeting with him, and he comes out, and she comes out and says, well, she basically condemned Israel for Gaza. I mean, she really scolded Netanyahu to the point where the prime minister's office has said that that's not what they talked about privately, and he was stunned that she came out and publicly scolded him. Your reaction?
Look, Israeli leaders today announced that she may cost lives. She may cause a delay in the acceptance of the ceasefire or whatever deal is going to be made, because Hamas now sees some light, some distance between Israel and the United States. And by making that statement, she may have caused the death of innocent people, Palestinians and Israelis. She should never have made that statement. When you meet with somebody like the prime minister of a country, you make an agreed-upon statement. Both sides make agreed-upon statements. You don't leave the meeting and then diss the person who you just saw and was so friendly with the TV opportunity to get a nice picture. That's not right. And, you know, that's in my consideration when I have to decide, and many others have to decide, who to vote for. Right now, all I'm prepared to say is I no longer consider myself to be a member of the Democratic Party after those 80 people. I'm not yet a member of the Republican Party because I don't like Tucker Carlson. I don't like what he has been saying about Israel. I don't like what he's been saying about Ukraine, about foreign policy. And I think
By the way, breaking news, James Carville just says he's not getting terribly excited about Kamala Harris.
Well, we'll see. Of course, Obama just endorsed her, and a little too late, but he's done that finally. I think he really wants his wife to be president. I mean, I think the myth that she doesn't want to be president is not true. I think that she would like to be president, and if there were an opportunity for her to run, she would. I think that may be why Obama didn't so quickly endorse her. If she had not been endorsed and if she had fallen apart in the first couple of days, I suspect we would see Mrs. Obama suddenly making herself available to be drafted to save the Democratic Party. I remember her as a student, and she was very radical, much more radical.
A lot of Brutuses around.
Obama.
Professor, a lot of Brutuses around.
Yeah, A2. Yep.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain to the all-American people.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Rita, you have another guest?
Yeah, we have Tom Homan, former ICE director, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and of course also gave a rousing speech at the RNC. Tom, we've been talking about Kamala Harris, and first of all, you just heard, I don't know if you just heard, Tom, we heard Professor Dershowitz say that her language showing daylight between America and Israel is just disastrous for Middle East and obviously emboldening Hamas. I want to talk with you about border because some of the things she has said in the past about supporting illegal immigration, she's, quote, the borders are as much as they tried to erase it. How dangerous do you believe she would be for American national security?
You think things are bad now. She's more liberal than President Biden is. Look, she as a senator, she supported sanctuary cities. As a senator, she wanted to abolish ICE. She compared ICE to the KKK during the Senate hearing. And look, when she was a prosecutor in California, illegal aliens were not turned over to ICE, even though they committed, very serious felonies, rape and murder. So look, first of all, she's never going to be president. I think President Trump will beat her hands down. But for her to try to run away from the border, saying she wasn't the border czar, and you got the White House saying that border crossings are down 55%, which is a lie. What the White House isn't saying is that they're moving thousands of people through the CHNV program from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela, coming into straight to the United States airports, thousands. They're bringing thousands in through CBP-1 after the port of entries. They just took thousands of people out of the same bucket, illegal aliens, and put thousands through the port of entry or through the airports, calling them a legal pathway, which is stop. It's abuse of the pro authority. But if you add the CHNV together with the CBP-1 app, together with what Border Patrol is still catching, plus 2 million gotaways, they're still at historic numbers, 4 times more than the Trump administration. There's no victory lap here at all.
So that's sort of, it's a shell game is what you're saying, right? They're just kind of moving it somewhere else.
Absolutely. They were bragging the other day they removed more people than Trump. Look, they can remove 10% of what came across the border, and they remove more than Trump because Trump can remove 90% what came across the border. The problem is Trump had less people coming across the border. The real question is, how many did they release in the United States? Trump, very few. Biden administration, we're looking at 8 million plus. 8 million people, historic record. All the prior administrations combined haven't released 8 million people. So that is a number that they're going to try to hide from American people. How many million did you release in the United States in violation of the parole statute? We're looking at about 8 million.
Tom Homan, to me, the fact that they are going through such we were talking yesterday about these talking points that are being disseminated to the media and others from the Kamala Harris campaign saying, no, she, quote, wasn't the border czar. She worked on root causes. They know that they're vulnerable on that issue. To me, that says it all, that they know it's either number 1 or 2 in the polls for everybody. Everybody's worried. And to me, that shows they're going to try to make it look like she's a bystander. Was she a bystander in this?
Well, look. Let's buy her story for a minute. She was looking for root causes. How did that work out?
I give it an F minus. F minus.
She says she was only dealing with root causes in Central America. Okay, Central America, when she was vice president, over 5 million people from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador across the border. So how did that work out for her? The bottom line is that she could have uncovered the root causes in 30 seconds. She simply had to walk down the hall to the Oval Office. There's your root cause right there. They destroyed. They wrote 94 executive orders abolishing everything we did under the Trump administration, give us the most secure border of my lifetime. She knew what the root causes were. The 94 executive orders signed by President Biden that she agreed with. So, they can run and hide all they want, but the American people are not that stupid. They've all seen the videos the last 3.5 years. And why did Joe Biden wait for 3.5 years to do anything about the border? And let me say one more thing. They're constantly saying President Trump screwed up the border by pushing back against the Senate bipartisan bill. Look, President Trump pushed back against that bill because I told him to. Several people talked to President Trump. If anybody read that border bill, all these newspapers saying, it could have fixed the border. Well, obviously, you're either an idiot or you didn't read the bill. Because the bill says 5,000 a day until they take any action. The bill says also if you claim fear, persecution, you can be released in the United States. Wait a minute. Now, they said the bill stopped catch release. No, it didn't. Everybody's claiming asylum, which means everybody will still be released. It did nothing about child trafficking.
Unbelievable. Well, bravo for you for telling them not to allow 5,000 a day. Wow. Tom, thank you so much, and keep fighting the good fight. Thank you for all you do and to try to keep us safe.
Let's go to a break, and we're going to come back with Larry Kudlow. The market was up 700 points today. Let's find out why.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, Friday with us today is the number one economist in our country. We have Larry Kudlow. Larry, so many things are happening. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll start with the markets. The stocks, Dow Jones was up big today, 600 points. And that's after it fell on Wednesday by about 600 points. Very weird. And I was just looking at my numbers. For the week, the Dow was up 300, but the NASDAQ was down 369, and the S&P 500 was down 46. Bond market hardly changed at all. The 10 years around 420. And then you got your inflation reports. Inflation is 2.5% for the last 12 months. The core rate is 2.6%. The economy in the first half of the year grew at 2.1%. So it's not awful, but it's not fabulous either. And another interesting thing, John, the oil has been slumping, and West Texas is down to $79.50, and Brent down to $80.50. That's interesting. Oil slumping. Maybe gasoline will come down as well. So I'll start with that and see what folks think.
Larry, I want to ask you, you were so passionate. I was watching you yesterday, I think on Outnumbered with all our friends there at Fox. And you said how Kamala Harris, her philosophy on immigration would bankrupt America because she doesn't consider anybody who crosses the border illegal. And she believes that they should have health care covered, education, housing. Explain that, because that is, you're looking at cities like New York and other places busting at the seams. Talk about the impact of her policies.
Yeah, I mean, because of the open borders that she supported, she and Joe Biden. So the numbers are hard to come by with precision, right? She got about 7.5 million illegals, probably another 2 million so-called gotaways. So call it 9.5 million, more or less. The estimates from the Congressional Budget Office, it's already cost us $150 billion. Okay, $150 billion. And in New York City, Eric Adams has, he estimated $12 billion, but that was a while ago. The cost is probably higher. So she wants all these entitlements to take care of the illegals, education, health care, food, and so forth. And that will bankrupt. I mean, as though we're not bankrupt already. But once those things ever went into place, entitlements never die. I mean, you'll be running into trillions of dollars because of an open border policy that, if she were elected president, she will continue the open border policy. At least there's no question in my mind. So the financial part of this story, the economic part of the story is terrible, and it will remain terrible. And then, of course, inside all these numbers, all the illegals, cheap labor, so real wages for native-born Americans have been falling, as though it wasn't bad enough with prices up 20% in the last 3.5 years. It's not a good story from any standpoint. And, you know, you got your crime and the failure of public safety. So it's a terrible story. The cost of this is enormous in many ways, dollars and cents one way, crime and the lack of public safety in another.
And Larry, you're our number one show on Saturday morning. You're on from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock with the economic forecast. And what are you going to be talking about tomorrow?
Well, we're going to talk a lot about the political story, and we're also going to talk. We're going to have a full half hour on the economy, plus another full half hour on the stock market roundup. But there's some breaking news you might want to hear. Trump has said he's going back to Butler, Pennsylvania for another rally. That just came across the tape a little bit ago to honor the fireman who was killed, Comparatori. And then, of course, Dopey Dope, the FBI head, finally came out and said, yes, it was a bullet.
Wow, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, that just came across the tape.
What, Ray said? Did Ray say that? Ray, Christopher Ray.
Ray said that.
Finally.
He has some nerve yesterday in testimony saying it might not be a bullet. It might have been, some kind of
I was shocked.
Charred glass. That's just crazy. And, these agencies, the FBI in Washington, the Secret Service in Washington, the Justice Department in Washington, throw in the CIA in Washington, these institutions continue to let everybody down. The whole thing, from the Russian hoax through the lawfare that's gone on against Donald Trump. Now they're trying to discredit the bullet thing. Trump said, I took a bullet for democracy. That was a very telling remark he made. And Ray had to backtrack and cover his tracks on this. But, look, I've interviewed a lot of people this week, including Speaker Mike Johnson. This congressional task force, which is bipartisan, thankfully, 7 Republicans, 6 Democrats, they're going to be hiring investigators who will go underneath the Washington big shots and really try to do a good job and find out exactly what happened and who did what to whom. And they're going to interview Secret Service agents, for example, and local police, for example. But, Christopher Wray has some nerve saying what he said, trying to somehow whitewash the FBI's mistakes as well as the Secret Service mistakes. Just incredible to me.
I agree.
He ought to resign. He ought to resign, too, by the way.
Well, we let me tell you something. Everybody was in shock when he said that, and that's why I guess he realized how much shock he created, and that's why he went backwards back to the bullet.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It's a somersault. It's a jujitsu. They're just trying to muddy the waters and somehow protect their agencies when, unfortunately, they almost killed the president. Unfortunately, the agencies did not do well. They did not do their job. And anybody who doubts that should go and look at Senator Ron Johnson's timetable, minute by minute, leading up to the rally, and see they had more than ample information, number one, to knock that kid off, but number two, to keep Trump off the stage.
Yeah, it's stunning.
Agreed.
It is.
Larry Kudlow, I'll be listening tomorrow at 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock on WABCRadio.com and worldwide, and thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
And, Rita, you have some hot news sponsored by Goya?
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And John, before we get to the headlines, we got some letters raving about Goya.
I got letters from Indiana. I got letters from Missouri raving about. I always tell people how good those Goya beans are.
They're yummy.
And you want to know the truth? I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah, I know you are.
Those Goya beans are a little bit better than the ordinary beans.
Well, and they're healthy and they taste delicious too. And now people bought beans because they heard how great you loved them. It was lovely letters that have been coming in.
I ever heard.
All right, now, and what about this? Here's part 2. And here are the headlines, guys. The Paris Olympics held their opening ceremony today on the Seine River. The flag bearers took part by riding in boats. NBA legend LeBron James and women's tennis star Coco Gauff were the U.S. flag bearers. Meanwhile, by the way, the entire day got off to a chaotic and very disruptive start after what officials are calling a coordinated attack on the country's rail system. Cables were cut and trackside signal systems were torched. Former President Trump is calling for hostages held by Hamas to be released immediately. Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today at Mar-a-Lago. He added that if he wins the presidential election in November, the conflict in the Middle East will be worked out very quickly. He went on to criticize the Biden administration's handling of the war in Gaza. And finally, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is backing Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential bid at a rally in Philadelphia. He appeared alongside trade union today, the leaders of those unions in Philly, and he praised Harris. The governor is considered a possible running mate along with several others. And those are your Goya, which are delicious, top headlines of the day.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. Well, one of the, I think, most stunning moments that we have seen in the last few days is when those pro-Hamas protesters put up the Palestinian flags right outside the U.S. Capitol and replaced them with those flags, and they were up there for quite a bit until the next person who we have on the show replaced them with the American flag, put back our U.S. flags. It is a stunning moment. And joining us now is Congressman Brandon Williams, a veteran, too, which we love. Congressman, I am so glad that you got together all these other House members, including the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and you said, we're going to put back our American flags as opposed to those Palestinian flags that were flying there. Your thoughts about why, what went through your mind when you saw that? I was incensed just visually. I can't imagine seeing it in person.
Well, Rita, you described it exactly right. We had all seen the burning, the shocking burning of the American flags, as you say, right there, just off Capitol grounds at Union Station. 3 flagpoles that had proud American flags on them were taken down, burned, and Palestinian flags put in their place. And, you know, as a veteran, the flag means a lot to me. And when I saw that, I'm just like, we've got to do something. I'm not going to let this stand. And we did it.
We'll say we could break. We're getting direct.
Yes. So go ahead, Congressman. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Congressman.
Yeah, no problem. I just, you know, when we came off the House floor from voting, I had recruited everyone while we were on the House floor. And, you know, some of them walked over. A couple of us drove over. My office retrieved 3 flags from our stash of American flags. And we met over there, and we were met by the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police. And we didn't really know what we were walking into. And they were happy to see us. They were happy to welcome us. The cops were fantastic and helped us keep the flag from touching the ground. And when it was all over, Congressman Derek Van Orden, also a Navy veteran, he was a Navy SEAL, said, hey, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. We all lined up. It was very moving. I can tell you, just to right a wrong. You know, I wish we could right every wrong in America, but we could right that wrong.
Absolutely.
And we could restore dignity to our nation's capital.
And by the way, I want to tell everybody we're talking to Congressman Brandon Williams. By the way, you are also you're a veteran of the first Gulf War. You volunteered to serve as a nuclear submarine officer for the Navy. You understand what that flag means. Congressman, first of all, what do you think needs to happen to the protesters? The fact that they were even able to go up there. I don't know if you saw some new headlines that just came out that 11 of the people that were arrested, and they only arrested, I think it was like 20 something, 11 of them have already been released. And maybe they were associated with the flag. They were destroying statues and other things. That's right by the U.S. Capitol. These people, I'm telling you, it's disgraceful. What are they doing in our country?
Well, the worst thing that they did on Wednesday is they attacked the cops. And that's, I don't care who you are, you should go to jail. So the second thing they did is they destroyed federal property. Some people say, well, you have the right to, burn the American flag. Sure you do. Your own flag, not federal property taken off of federal grounds. The third thing they did is they vandalized the Liberty Bell. They vandalized the statues there. Vandalism is a crime. And so how these are not being prosecuted is beyond me.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Well, Congressman, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you for protecting our flag. And thank you also for your incredible, great service to our country. Thank you.
God bless America.
Rita, thank you. And I'll just tell you, I'm proud to represent New York in Congress. I'm up in Syracuse. And for all your listeners, just know that that's north of Yonkers.
I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Now calling in from Switzerland, which is Hoot and Holler from Paris and the Paris Olympics, and so many things are happening in France today, is Mario Economou, one of our correspondents there. Mario, what's going on in Paris? What happened this morning?
Yes, hi there. So it actually didn't happen this morning. It started pretty much overnight. And it looks like there was some arson, some burning of train tracks, as well as some hacking activity, which disrupted many of the high-speed rail lines that make their way into Paris and up into Belgium and across into the United Kingdom. They suspect that it may have been radical leftists or anarchists. This is an MO they've used, as well as potentially environmentalists. But the reality is they have absolutely no idea who it is. And they did succeed in disrupting tens of thousands of people from coming in to see the games, as well as commuters to come in for their work, visitors visiting the city as tourists. So it was a bit of a mess. But there are several other things which are happening also, which are really not that good. You have a situation at the Olympic Village where you have thousands of athletes that need to eat, and apparently there's not enough eggs, there's not enough chicken, there's not enough protein. And the idea behind this debacle is that they wanted to source their food locally, meaning within France. And, of course, they were unable, I suspect, to get enough eggs and enough chicken. And they also wanted to move away and make this as carbon neutral a feeding process as possible, meaning they wanted to have more plant-based foods. The problem is the athletes are complaining because they need protein in order to be able to compete. So this did not work out too well. In fact, the English team has now dispatched their own chef with their own food to be able to prepare the meals for them in accordance with what they need. Another problem they have is that there are, apart from the athletes who number around 10,000, you also have their coaches, the support staff. There's roughly 30 to 40,000 people there, and the facility they have can feed around about 7,500 people at a time. So what's happening is a lot of the athletes now apparently are bringing their own food back to the Olympic Village. They're also complaining about the bedding. Once again, the idea was to be able to provide sustainable bedding, and what they did was they're using compressed paper and cardboard to make beds. And apparently the athletes are saying the beds are very uncomfortable, they're not very strong, and they're not able to support, in some cases, of course, the larger athletes.
Wow.
So I think that
especially
a
the
lot of things.
big wrestlers.
Yeah, I was thinking the weightlifters, they're probably like, this stinks, Wow.
Yeah,
and they're on a
also,
diet.
Right. Yeah, no protein and have a wood on your bed. What about also terror threats? Also, one of the things that people are so worried about is just look in America. We're so worried about all these heightened threats. What about the heightened threats taking place in Paris? I can't imagine the security there for the Olympics.
Yeah, so I think that I don't think it's any higher than at any other international or global event that takes place. I think that's just something everybody has to live with today and be prepared with. I know that many of the people who are in media from all the countries around the world that are going there to basically take the videos and provide the reports, they had to go through 2 tiers of checkpoints in order to be able to get in close to where they could film a lot of the events. The opening ceremony was going to happen. In fact, this is the first time ever that the opening ceremony has occurred outside of a stadium. And some people are saying, although the authorities, the French authorities and the Olympic Committee are not confirming this, they're saying there's a reason why they did the opening ceremony on river boats going down the river that goes through Paris. Apart from the fact that everybody could line on both sides of the bank, the reason was for security purposes.
Wow.
So that,
Ed Cox, you have a question for Mario.
Vive la France. There's a new strain of COVID that's going around the world, very contagious.
Yes, virulent, correct.
Has that hit there's a lot of people living close together. Has it hit the athletes?
So
and what's the impact going to be?
It is spreading around Europe. You're absolutely right. And we're seeing it in some of the strangest of places where you think it wouldn't be seen, where it's very warm and people are on vacation and everything is outdoors, places like Spain, places like Italy, places like Greece. But yes, there is an increase, and it is a rather virulent strain. Hospitalizations are nowhere where they used to be years ago, but there is a concern, and there is a warning that if you're indoors or if you're flying or if you're on a train, it's best to mask at this point once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Mario, thank you so much. Please keep us posted, too, because obviously the games are just getting underway, all the events and so forth. Keep us posted as things develop, and we just pray everybody stays safe and healthy. Thank you very, very much.
All right,
do you have a comment? Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Governor Patterson has a comment.
No, Rita, I thought maybe we would call Goya and try to get some food over there before the athletes aren't able to perform anymore.
They could use it. There's good protein in the Goya beans, actually. That would be a good thing. Mario, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. And everybody, stick with us now that the governor has chimed in. Ambassador Danny Danon is going to talk about Netanyahu after the break.
Let's see if he knows how the meeting with President Trump went. Let's go to a break.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby, and President Trump met with Prime Minister Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago today. Of course, he addressed Congress earlier this week. And joining us now to talk about the importance of all of this, and obviously the protest too, joining us now is Ambassador Danny Danon. He was Israel's 17th permanent representative to the UN, also chairman of the World Likud, a very important organization. Ambassador, this is Rita Cosby. We're so happy to have you again. Do you know anything about how the meeting went today? And obviously, how important was this meeting at Mar-a-Lago today?
Well, Rita, it was a very important meeting, and the Prime Minister and the President, they walked in the past, they know the issues, but things have changed, while we are all following the elections in the U.S., at the same time, the Iranians are moving forward with their nuclear ambition. They are feeding the proxies with more ammunition and money. And it's a different situation than it was 4 years ago. That's why I think it was an important meeting, an important visit of the Prime Minister, where basically he shared the facts, but also the emotions of the Israelis that thank the American people for standing with us. But at the same time, we all have to realize that we are fighting evil force, a strong force, and we have to stand together and to defeat evil.
How concerned are you that there were so many Democratic members of Congress who didn't want to attend, who boycotted the prime minister's speech there in Congress? I thought it, and some with signs, with very vile signs against him.
Well, I think we want to actually focus on the bright aspect to see the support of the American people. And they understand. They understand we stand together. I saw those people, I wouldn't call them protesting. It was more like a riot. But, they were actually burning not the Israeli flag, but the American flag. They were vandalizing monuments in the capital of the United States, not in our capital. So I think overwhelming majority of Americans understand that we are together. They don't support those radicals. And that's why I think we have to be very strong, very determined, and win this war. That's what we have to do.
Ambassador, I was talking about the Democrats who boycotted the speech because there were some who didn't come, didn't attend the speech, which I think is disheartening.
Well, I think when people watched the speech of the Prime Minister, they saw that it was well received, standing ovations. And I think we have to look at the content of the speech. So if some people chose not to show up for political reasons, that's their own problem.
By the way, I thought his speech was amazing. And I thought also he made it so clear, as John, we were just talking, the choice between barbarism and civilization. I thought it was an incredible speech. Your reaction to how, just the content, because he talked about this moment in history.
I think it was a very important speech at a very important time. And I think the main message to take out from the visit and the speech of the Prime Minister that we are fighting your fight. We are fighting your enemies. And our victory will be the victory of the United States. We now just saw the opening of the Olympics. So everybody in Israel, for sure we wish luck to the Israeli delegation. But at the same time, we want to see the U.S. winning, the U.S. team winning. So we are together. We are together in all fronts. And I think we expect the U.S. to stand by us to perform the moral clarity of the American people.
Governor Patterson?
Mr. Ambassador, I was wondering why there is so much opposition. That was a really dynamic and incredible speech with quotes that could fill up a few pages of notes. But I'm wondering, where is the opposition that's coming from Israel itself coming from?
Well, we are a strong democracy, and there is a strong opposition in Israel. And also we have to admit that the situation where we have more than 100 hostages still being held by Hamas, it creates a lot of tension in Israel, and rightfully so, because, we want to see them coming back home. And I think the Prime Minister is doing everything he can to bring them back home. But it's not an easy thing to do when you deal with a non-rational rival like Hamas.
Ambassador, Israel has always said they will not accept Iran having nuclear weapons. I guess you would have a different attitude at it, whether it's President Biden or President Trump or President Harris.
Well, I think any American president should realize that nuclear Iran is a threat to America, period. Maybe they are threatening to attack us. And by the way, they did. Last April, they sent a few hundred projectiles into Israel. But when you look at the capabilities of the Iranian drones and the Houthis in Yemen, you realize that they can reach the shores of Europe and the U.S. easily. So we have to fight together. And I think I'm worried about it, Joe, because I think that the fact that you are now so busy with the elections here, it gives the Iranian more time. And they are very smart. I'm sure they will try to take advantage of what's happening worldwide now. And while democracies will argue about what's happening in our parliament, in your Congress, at the same time, they're moving very fast in order to achieve their nuclear ambitions.
I think our enemies, both Israel's enemies and the United States enemies, are looking, because of the state of mind that President Biden is in, they're looking to see what can we get away with while he's still president.
I don't know about that, but I know that they realize that the attention today is not about what they are doing, and I know for a fact that they are taking advantage of that, both on the nuclear track, but also spending money on their proxies and sending weapons and dollars to make sure that there will be chaos in the region.
And everybody, we are talking to former Ambassador Danny Danon. Ed Cox, you have a question?
Yes, continuing about the nuclear issues. Just where is Iran now? Is it that they have enough fissile material or that they can deliver a nuclear weapon? Where are they at the moment?
Well, I cannot go into details, but I will quote Secretary Blinken, who is usually very optimistic about everything in the Middle East. He said only 2 weeks ago that it's only a matter of weeks before they are capable of putting a bomb together. So they are moving ahead. And unfortunately, we don't see that there are enough sanctions, and they have the money. They have the money. They're selling oil to Iran and to other countries, and with that money, they invest a lot in the nuclear program.
You know, how concerned are you, Ambassador, like to Ed and John's point? I mean, this moment in history, I can't even imagine. One of the most powerful lines from Netanyahu this week was he said, we are getting it. He was saying, I think it's like 7 different directions, between Iran, the Houthis, Hezbollah is another thing, Hamas. Just how pivotal is this moment for Israel and America to really stand strong against evil in the world?
Well, for us, it's a crucial moment. We're looking back at our short history, I think we realize that this is the hardest time for Israel since 1948, that we fight so many fronts, and we're fighting strong powers. When you look at Iran today and their proxies, I don't underestimate their capabilities and their intentions. They said in the past, we have a plan, they call it 2040, to destroy Israel in 2040. But now they're actually starting to implement that plan. I can tell you that we have the capabilities, we have the determination, and we will block them and we will win. But it's not going to be easy, and we will need the support of our allies. And now it's the time when you actually test your friends and your allies. When you're under attack, we expect our allies to stand behind us without conditions, no ifs, no buts, pure support for what we represent in the region.
Absolutely. Ed Cox, real quick.
Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, they're all basically funded by Iran. How effective are the sanctions on Iran, and could they be made more effective?
Definitely, we need to see more sanctions. And actually, I saw that the Europeans are actually promoting the idea of applying more sanctions. I hope that this administration, we shouldn't wait for the elections or any change of the government. I think it should happen now, to see more sanctions against Iran. It will limit their capabilities to sell oil and to generate income to support terrorists.
Absolutely. Well, we are with you. And boy, thank you for fighting the fight. And we will stand strong with Israel always. Ambassador, thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And what do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God bless America.